Hello and welcome back, Fire Emblem 12 Lunatic-Reverse 0% growths. I've finalized the route for this run, so it's time for that early game errata. In Chapter 3, I deployed reclassed Cord instead of Luke, and spammed his heals as much as I could to hit D rank in that chapter. Chapter 3X was the same as the video. In Chapter 4, I gave Palla her second and third angelic robes instead of doing that in Chapter 5. This allowed me to remove the only crit in the chapter by using this slightly different formation, and Palla can just fight 2 pirates on enemy phase instead of critting 1 on player phase. In Chapter 5, I deployed Cord instead of Yumina, and used a rescue on Marth at the end to save 3 turns, otherwise the same. In Chapter 6, I had to deploy Yumina alongside Militia because you need 2 physics on turn 1, and it's impossible for Cord to be C rank yet. The alternate timeline strat from the Chapter 6 video is now canon, and I was able to improve the reliability of the boss kill by realizing that Frey's Killer Lance can be brought over to Palla. Also, the rescue in Chapter 5 means I need to hammer now, and I found a cute way to do that here. Chapter 6X, I think I found a slightly more reliable kill on the boss with Sirius and the Killer Lance, since Palla's too strong to feed this kill with the Killer Lance. And make sure Sita has Marth's support bonus to her hit rating when you go in for this Javelin kill. And you could use the Hammer and Staff in this chapter instead of Chapter 6, but then you'd have to go up the left or right side and you'd miss out on the Vulnerary, and that staff user was Cord, not Yumina. Chapter 7 once again has Cord instead of Yumina, and I gave Palla her last Speedwing of the run, plus 3 Draco Shields. She needs all that stuff eventually, and so I might as well do it early. This made the chapter significantly easier because every thief except the boss does literally 0 damage with Palla. With proper blocking, you can make the Angelic Robe thief stay outside the hero range, and thus I removed the crit on that thief, and with Palla's new speed and the Scorpio shard, she doesn't get doubled by the boss, and you can quite easily remove the boss crit as well, leaving only 1 crit in that whole chapter. Very nice. Chapter 8, I brought Militia instead of Yumina, and scrambled to get her to level 10 by spamming heals with Fina's help. The Chapter 7 Speedwing frees Scorpio off of Palla in this chapter, but no one else can actually benefit from it here, so this one's mostly the same. Chapter 9 doesn't really benefit from the stat boosters either, except that Palla can now afford to get crit by the Killing Edge Thief on turn 1, I guess that's kinda cool. Promoted Militia filled in as our combat sage instead of Yumina, and Cord was able to hit C rank stabs and level 10 in this chapter. And now we're all up to speed. Let's get into chapters 10 and 10X. You'll recall from chapter 9 that Palla was just on the verge of killing Etzel while kiting him, but now we are safe to give Palla the 3rd energy drop from the armory. Now, in FE3 Book 2, you couldn't just reclass Wendell to Draco Knight and go recruit Elrian. Now, to disincentivize that, in this game, they added 2 mages with Shaver Tomes, which deal effective damage to flyers. On any other difficulty, you can just one-shot them with, say, Palla and Minerva. But with the reversal mechanic, we'll be the ones getting one-shot. So instead, Wendell is a sniper, because his insane speed lets him double the bishops at the start of the map, as well as letting him walk on water. Sirius is a berserker for water tile movement stuff, and after promoting, Cord is a sage, along with Etzel for higher base magic. Catria and the Avatar are coming as bishops, because I need 4 total staff users and I want those support bonds. So Catria starts us off with a barrier onto Wendell, who shows off his doubling power with our familiar Forged Iron Bow. The dropped Vulnerary allows us to convoy warp Scorpio, which we'll get back to in a sec. Now, proper unit placement allows the Avatar to swoop in and trade off the barrier staff to help out Palla, and Marth gets Scorpio out of the convoy for her to use. All the stat boosters, plus Scorpio, allow Palla to one-round this sniper with a Steel Lance, which is an exact kill if he rolls max stats. And this guy drops a Killing Edge, so we can send Scorpio right on back to the convoy. Merrick makes his return to the story here, battling a rival mage named Elrian, who we want to recruit rather than kill, so we'll remove Merrick's weapon and use a Pure Water to stay alive. Thanks again to proper starting positions, Fina can hop onto the water, which costs 5 movement per tile, grab the Scorpio from the convoy, and give it back to Wendell before finally dancing him. Now Wendell is set to take out the 2nd bishop. That is easily the slickest use of the convoy in this whole playthrough. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. The 2 bishops have Thoron tomes, so they both have 17 crit, and the 2 Shaver tome mages just up this path have even higher crit, 26 or 27, which can lead to pretty annoying resets. But Sirius is available here to burn a random number with his hand axe on the mercenary if you want a second try before resetting the crit deaths. So the big question now is, how can Palla possibly be safe against the Shaver tome mages? Well, they can't actually one-shot Palla. They each hit her for about 80% of her health, while the 2% crit rule is telling the mages that they can kill both George and Wendell, who we expertly placed in their range on the water tiles. And the AI always prioritizes kills, and of course Fina is safe with the mercenary blocking the middle. George needs both Taurus and Gemini to one-shot with Parthia against stat variation, and Wendell needed Leo for the bishops, so that's why Palla couldn't have any strength shards. Sirius manages to counter this mercenary with a terrible hit rate on his hand axe, but it doesn't matter, because the enemy healers on this map are the real deal. They appear to heal any injury immediately, and there's a lot of them. There's also a lot of units rushing us, so you can imagine I don't want to stay here much longer. We need to dip into the Thief Staff a bit though. This map has great treasure, and we have no time to collect it by hand. This first chest is a large bullion, which of course sells for 10,000 gold, very, very important. Now Sirius's water mobility as a berserker helps us move the Leo shard around, and we team up to take down this mercenary. Wendell and Fina make it across the water, and Wendell heads off to recruit his student. Elrian, however, has no problem mercilessly murdering his teacher, so Merrick is going to body block in between the pillars, which cost 1 extra movement, so now Palla and Wendell are both out of Elrian's range. Etzel gets a little staff rank, and Marth starts to move across the water. You can see now why I kept Palla in this spot. She's expertly holding this choke point for Wendell's safety, and finds a fire tome for her trouble. Nothing wrong with free money. I would have liked to have her do this with an axe to build up her rank, but Palla isn't strong enough to kill that sniper against stat variation with the steel axe. I told you about these healers. The Thief Staff is one of the most important items in the game, so it may seem wasteful to use a charge on a healing staff, but Recover heals a unit to full no matter what, and I simply can't beat the upcoming chapters without it. Now thanks to the Leo Shard, Minerva can one-shot this mage against stat variation with the Hot Glare for a free Elfire Tome, which we couldn't get on Hard 3 because we finished that in 2 turns. Marth makes it across the water with his enormous 9 movement, and Fina helps him out. Wendell finally recruits Elrian, and we're out in an absolutely beautiful 3 turns. I'm pretty confident that a 2-turn clear is impossible under this run's conditions. You'd have to kill both Shaver Tome mages and the sniper on turn 1, and I don't see that happening with the reversal mechanic. On difficulties below Hard 3, keeping all the enemy healers alive rewards you with a silver card, which cuts all shop prices in half. It's pretty amazing. But on Hard 3 and 4, you get a vulnerary. It's a pretty painful change. On to Chapter 10X. We pick up the skill bond between Catria and Palla, which is the worst item in the game, but also the speed bond for deploying Catria and the Avatar together 10 times, but that does not include Chapter 2, by the way. I don't know why that is. And that gives +2 speed to 1 unit for a single chapter, so start placing your bets on where that gets used. Elrian was holding the Ares Star Shard, which gives +1 luck and skill. Not as useful as Libra, but we'll take it. Now 10X is just a gimmick map, where we need to find and kill the real copy of the boss. You can do this by cycling through the enemies until it hits the top row, and whoever's selected is the real one. And even casual players should realize the real one has to be in the top row, since those 3 have higher stats than all the others. If he's in the middle, just reset. If not, position Fina on that side, and you're good to go for a 1-turn clear. The extra luck from the shards theoretically should help Palla avoid getting crit, but she survives that shit anyway! It takes it right back to him with the extra skill from the shards. And there you go, that's Chapter 10X in 1 turn. I'm gonna go ahead and mix things up this time and put on this weird accessory for the avatar, because it doesn't mess with the afro, so why not? Thank you guys very much for watching. There shouldn't be any more changes to past chapters after this, so let's get it done.